I've been vegan for 5 years. Or I guess technically speaking, I'm plant-based. I've been plant-based for 5 years because I still use leather products, I still use honey, but I digress. Okay, for all intents and purposes, for the sake of this video, I've been vegan for 5 years. I went vegan in June of 2017, and I'm filming this video in August of 2022. Now, in those 5 years, my life has changed drastically, and I don't credit all of those changes to me going vegan, but some of those changes are definitely, at least partially, the byproduct of me being vegan. Now, before I go into the changes that I've noticed since being vegan, I want to explain why I went vegan. Because a lot of people don't know why I went vegan, which makes sense because I've never actually told this story. So growing up, I struggled with eczema. Now, if you don't know what eczema is, basically it's where your skin dries out to the extent that it starts to flake, peel, and itch really, really, really badly. And anyone who's dealt with eczema in their lives, even minor eczema, knows that it's very, very inconvenient. Okay, not only is it detrimental to your confidence when you have visible eczema, but it's detrimental to your quality of life as a whole. Even when you're by yourself and nobody can see you, you still have to deal with the physical pain, the physical sensation of eczema. So growing up with this, I kind of saw it as the norm. It was never that bad to the extent that I felt the need to take drastic action. But as I got older, I began to deal with more life stuff, I guess you could say. As you get older, you deal with more stress. And junior year, that was when my stress reached its peak at the time. And that's for a multitude of reasons. For one, junior year was the hardest year academically of my entire schooling career. In addition to that, I was also working for the first time. I was working at IHOP, and I was a busser, which meant that I was, for one, working around a lot of chemicals, but two, I was working weekend mornings, which meant that I didn't get the chance to sleep in for months at a time. So for months, I was sleep deprived. No opportunity to take naps, no opportunity to sleep in, to catch up on the sleep that I missed. Months were going by, and I was not getting enough sleep, 5 to 6 hours of sleep per night. Some people can do that. Me personally, I'm not built like that. So all of these factors contributed to me having the worst eczema flare-up of my entire life. And when I say the worst eczema flare-up of my entire life, I truly mean that. It was terrible. It got to the point where not only was it causing me to lose sleep at night because of the physical pain, but people were pointing it out at school. So imagine I'm already stressed out because of my eczema, and now people are pointing it out, which makes me even more stressed out, and the stress makes the eczema even worse. And it just created this terrible, terrible cycle. And eventually I went to the dermatologist. My mom took me to the dermatologist, and they prescribed me with these steroid creams. Now, steroid creams can be very, very effective in the short term, and they were. I applied the steroid cream, and my eczema was gone pretty much overnight. And I remember thinking, and this might have just been my own cynicism and pessimism, but I remember thinking to myself, this is too good to be true. There's no way that this steroid cream got rid of my eczema overnight just like that. So I looked it up, and lo and behold, steroid creams are a temporary solution to a permanent problem. At least that's what they say. They say that eczema is supposed to be permanent, but I'm living proof that that's not true. Anyways, I started to panic because I realized that this was only going to work for a certain amount of time. I was basically running on borrowed time. And I stuck with the steroid creams. I made a few lifestyle changes. I started working out more, started maybe drinking more water, things like that. But eventually, as promised, the steroid creams stopped working. And then I was just stuck with my eczema with no cure. No cure, just me and my eczema and all of the misery that accompanied it. Now, at this point, I began to get desperate. And I started looking up natural remedies for healing eczema. And the first thing that popped up, the first thing and the most prevalent thing that popped up was veganism. Now, at the time, veganism was not on my radar. Okay, I grew up eating meat. I grew up eating Popeye's chicken, bacon, anything that you could think of, I was eating it. But when you experience the type of physical pain that eczema brings, not only physical, but psychological pain of having people point it out and not wanting to go to school because your face is flared up and things like that, you get desperate. And I was willing to put all of that pleasure to the side to make sure that I healed, that I could live at least somewhat of a normal life. Even though I'd have to switch my diet up, to me it was a worthwhile trade-off. So I went vegan overnight. I went vegan overnight in June 2017, and I have not turned back since. Now, with that being said, what are some of the things that I've noticed since going vegan? First, I want to talk about the pros that I've noticed since going vegan. Now, the first thing that I noticed, the very first thing that I noticed after going vegan was that my skin cleared up. My skin actually cleared up. It worked. Going vegan did help my skin clear up. Now, to be fair, I did have flare-ups in the future, but they were never as bad as the ones that I had prior to going vegan. And I did notice a direct correlation between the food that I ate, particularly red meat, and my eczema flare-ups. So going vegan definitely helped me out substantially in that regard. Not only did my skin clear up in terms of eczema, but any acne that I might have struggled with also disappeared. Okay, if you guys notice, my skin is almost always clear in my videos, and that's for a reason. Yes, the skincare products that I use definitely help out quite a bit, but all they're doing is maximizing what's already there. A lot of my clear skin comes from just my lifestyle in general, but a big part of my lifestyle is being vegan. It's much more difficult to eat junk food on a plant-based diet. Now, don't get me wrong. It's still very possible to eat junk food on a plant-based diet, especially nowadays. Okay, nowadays, pretty much anything that you could think of that is not vegan, there's a vegan version of it. Even meat. There's a vegan version of meat. You can find the cakes, the cookies, all of that stuff. You can find all of the junk food in vegan form. And that's very dangerous because in your mind, you think that you're eating healthy because it's vegan, it's plant-based, and it says it on the label. But in reality, you're eating something that's just as unhealthy as the non-vegan counterpart. I digress. My skin cleared up, and more or less, it's been clear ever since. There have been times where my skin flared up pretty badly, but like I said, it was nothing like the times before I went vegan. Now, the next thing that I noticed within the week of me going vegan was that my energy increased substantially, exponentially. I was able to run longer distances while expending less energy. Now, why this is, I don't know. I don't have any scientific data to back this up, but I do have anecdotal evidence. I have anecdotal experience from going on runs and being able to go further on less energy, having more wind in me at the end. Now, I guess one feasible theory is that the vegan diet promotes the consumption of more carbs, and that enables you to have more energy for working out. But I don't know. Like I said, I don't have any scientific data to back this up. I don't track my macros or anything like that to know that I'm consuming any more carbs than I was before going vegan. All I know is that I have more energy, and also my recovery time is a lot faster. My recovery time at the gym is much, much faster. There's never really a time where I'm sore for more than one day. I'm rarely ever sore to begin with. My body recovers extremely quickly. I could honestly do 2 to 3 workouts a day if I wanted to, because my body just recovers that quickly. And there are also other factors that play a role in this, such as cold showers and stretching and foam rolling, things like that. But this has been the case since even before I implemented those things. So I know that veganism is the primary factor, the primary differentiating factor in my recovery time. But now that I've covered some of the pros of going vegan, I want to cover some of the drawbacks of going vegan, because I'm not one of those people who advocates for everybody to go on a vegan diet. Okay, I don't discriminate against people who eat meat because, to my point earlier, I grew up eating meat. I grew up eating Popeye's chicken. I grew up eating chicken tenders at every single restaurant that I ever went to. So I don't discriminate. I'm not here to convince you to go vegan. I'm here to give you the full picture of my experiences. Now, obviously, with me being vegan for 5 years and having no intention of turning back, I think it's worth it. I personally think the pros are worth the cons. But you may not, and that's fine. Now, with that being said, the first con that I've noticed of being vegan, and this is more subjective, this is maybe more of a personal thing, but dating is much more difficult when you're vegan. I don't require that my partner be vegan as well, but I much prefer to have a vegan partner as opposed to an omnivore partner or a carnivore partner. And the reason why is because it's very, very inconvenient to have to go to different restaurants to get your food every time you go out to eat. It's very inconvenient to have to get different groceries for each person because one person eats this and another person doesn't. It's just very inconvenient. Now, is that to say that if I meet the love of my life tomorrow and she's an omnivore, That I'll turn her away? Absolutely not. But I would much prefer if she's vegan. Okay, and that preference, that one preference alone, cuts back my options by about 99%. You see, I remember back in 2020 when I eventually got back on Tinder after getting my heart broken for the first time. I've talked a lot about that in other videos. But when I got back on Tinder, I decided to put vegan in my bio because the girl that I got my heart broken by was vegetarian. And having experienced being able to go to the same restaurants and enjoy the food, or having her putting me onto restaurants, I wanted that. I wanted that same experience. So I put vegan in my Tinder bio, and I believe I got around 3 to 4 matches that following month. I was accustomed to getting maybe 30 to 40 matches per month. But the fact that I put vegan in my bio, that alone, with pretty much all the same pictures, that one addition to my bio cut back my matches substantially. Because people discriminate. In the same way that I'd prefer to be with somebody who's vegan, a non-vegan would prefer to be with somebody who's non-vegan. Because it's inconvenient to be with somebody who has such a big disparity in such a foundational aspect of life. Okay, food is a foundational aspect of life. So for you to not eat the same food, I'm not saying that it's a deal breaker. For some people it is, but it's an inconvenience. Given the choice, I'm going to choose the girl that's vegan. Now that's also gotten me into some situations where, to my point earlier, I got my heart broken or I got my feelings hurt because I was willing to put up with a lot more from vegan or vegetarian girls than I would have from a regular girl just on the basis that they were vegan or vegetarian. Because I was in the scarcity mindset. Me having that preference put me in the scarcity mindset. And that's why I said it's mostly a me thing, but it's something to consider. If you're a vegan or if you're considering going vegan and you want to be with another vegan, you have to understand that your options are going to go down significantly. Significantly. But like I said, that's probably more of a me thing. Now, the next con that I've noticed from going vegan is that it is much more difficult to build muscle. Now, mind you, I didn't start lifting weights until after I went vegan. So I don't really have that reference point to compare. But what I will say is that just getting in the amount of calories that you need to get in and getting in the amount of protein that you need to get in especially is not only much more difficult, but it's much more expensive. It's very possible to build muscle on a vegan diet. It's very, very possible, very achievable. I myself have put on probably 30 pounds since I went vegan. I'm a natural 130. Right now, as I'm filming this video, I weigh 160. Put on 30 pounds of muscle, but that didn't happen overnight. That is from 5 years of working out consistently in the gym. Okay, now, I have slacked off on my diet. I have slacked off on my recovery, with my sleep schedule in particular. But generally speaking, if you have two people with the exact same genetics who have the exact same training regimen, one person's vegan and one person's not, the person who's not vegan is going to put on muscle much quicker unless the person who is vegan eats more food to compensate for the fact that vegan food tends to be more calorically dilute, meaning that there's less calories and less protein in each food item. It's very inconvenient, and like I said, it's expensive. It's not uncommon for me to spend $80 to $100 per week on groceries for just myself.